Well, hello and welcome to Big Nate After Dark. That's right, Big Nate Streaming Circus in the nighttime. It's the right time. It's always the right time, right? For Big Nate, bringing you some love and admiration. It's love and admiration for everybody. So, I have a question. My biggest question is this. If you are a self-proclaimed Christian of whatever faith, it doesn't matter if you're Catholic, but you're of the Christianity vein, like God died on the cross, that kind of stuff. If you believe that, okay, and there's a lot of people that do, they believe that Jesus died on the cross for your sins, all that good stuff. What type of Christianity did you get brought up in? I mean, me, it was a charitable Christian. Somebody who believed that the less fortunate should be, brought in and helped and taken care of to a certain point to where they can go off on their own and perform God's work. But there are a lot of Christians out there, or self-proclaimed Christians, that don't believe that. They believe that all immigrants are bad and they should all be just thrown out of the country immediately. Which I don't think is the case. I mean, there's a lot of women and children that are in that number. And if you're not going to marry them and take care of their kids, then you might as well leave the dads with them if their dads are not committing crimes and stuff other than being here illegally. But are we all not just here illegally? I mean, honestly, just because I was born here doesn't mean I have any more claim to this world than anybody else. Now, this country, maybe, okay? But I'm not a birthright kind of guy. I am a U.S. citizen because my parents brought me up as a U.S. citizen. They could have took me anywhere in the world, and I could have been a citizen of that country. But this is what they chose to do, or had the ability to do, was to use their citizenship to pass on to me. Now, somewhere down our heritage, there was a person not too far removed from me that came from England. In fact, I have direct relatives that were first generation immigrants from England who sailed, okay? They had tickets on the Titanic. But because I think it was my great-great-great-grandmother flipped out, had a dream, said, well, I'm not getting on that boat, basically, at age 5. Her dad was like, you know what? We're just going to wait till the next boat. And so they came on, I think it was, Lusitania, which was the sister ship to the Titanic. And they showed up after the fact to pick everybody up, basically. And that's how they got to America, is that they basically helped the people from the Titanic who died, who survived to make it to America. Because she decided that she couldn't get on that boat and they had to wait. They had to wait, I think it was 3 days or something like that. So that's a story that's been passed down from generation to generation to generation. Now, she was a first generation immigrant with her father, who was he was a musician for the Royal Marines in England. He passed down his talent to his daughter, who had a son, and then he became one of the first band leaders in St. Louis. And his son gave birth to my grandmother. Then I think that's how it works. Something that I'd have to go back and check the history on that. But basically, the Titanic happened, and that daughter was my there's my grandmother and then my great-grandfather. My great-grandfather, so it'd been my great-great-grandmother had birth Benno Seymour. Her father was one of the first. Okay, yeah, that's how it works. So when she came over on the Titanic, she was a young girl. Or before the Titanic. Well, after the Titanic. Anyway, you guys get that. Her dad became one of the first band leaders, like marching band leaders, and formed the St. Louis marching band union. So people would basically become unionized, and then they would become part of a band, and then they would march in parades and stuff like that, and they'd get paid to do so. Yeah, but he was one of the first ones to do it. And then Benno Seymour was in that trade for a while. And then he had my grandmother, and she gave birth to my grandmother must have been born somewhere in the 1920s, because she gave birth to my dad in 46. So I think she was in her 20s at that time. Pretty young, maybe even 19. I'd have to go back. My sister's got all the freaking notes and shit, and I could talk to my aunt about it. Anyway, so my grandmother, my Nana, gave birth to my dad in St. Louis from my grandfather, who came back from the war, and they kind of just, the parents are like, yeah, they should get together. So they did, and that marriage didn't last very long, and so my grandfather left, leaving his son behind. Who does that? But, you know, he's kind of fucked up in the head after World War II. So, that being said, my grandmother moved out to California with my father in tow and got remarried to a guy named Ronnie Banks. Ronnie Banks comes from the line of Banks where my great-great-grandmother Banks, even though she wasn't related by blood, other than through my aunts, she worked for Alexander Graham Bell. Her brother cut her finger off, and it got fed to a chicken that they later ate. And the joke was that it was finger-looking good chicken. Yeah, KFC, you know, anyway. Maybe that's where KFC got their thing from, was my grandmother who lost. I remember because she lost, I think it was her middle finger, or at least part of it. And she was a little girl. She was holding a piece of wood, and her brother cut her finger off, and then it was flopping around, and the chicken ate it. That's the story. But Laura Banks was my great grandmother, was my great. Anyway, I knew Ronnie Banks, who was my grandfather from marriage, and I spent, some time with his mom, Laura Jean Banks, and my cousin Laura is named after her. Anyway, I've got some interesting history, and all I'm trying to make the point is that if those people would have came over and been in a situation like the people that are here now, trying to make a better life for themselves, I think that my heritage, my people of my heritage would have helped them. That's all I'm saying, because they were good Christian people. And I think that's where we got to really go with. Unlike some of the people that have, I'm a Christian and this is what I believe. I don't think you're the right kind of Christian to be leading Americans, honestly. I mean, you're developing other Christians that hate people. Why? Christians don't hate. It's not what they're meant to do. It's just not. So stop hating, start loving, and let's make a better world. Christian or not. Okay. Big Nate, out.